My mother didn't leave me a goodbye. She left me a puzzle with a price tag. The night after her memorial in Seattle, I was still pacing the Queen Anne house, drowning in silence, when my daughter Maya called out from the attic. She'd been sorting through cedar chests stacked like forgotten centuries. "Dad, you need to see this." Her hands trembled as she handed me a leather-bound diary, the spine cracked from years of hidden weight. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. I flipped to the final page, and there it was. 5 lines scrawled in my mother's exacting cursive, but nothing about love or farewell. Instead, ash, blue key, 12th step, Queen Anne 699842, ring twice. I stared at the code like it was an audit case file. That's how my brain works. I've been a forensic claims auditor for 20 years, trained to smell deceit in numbers. To anyone else, it might look like grief-stricken rambling, but to me, it was structure, pattern, deliberate. Maya sat cross-legged, her hair falling across her sketchbook. "Grandma wanted you to find this," she whispered. "She wanted us to." I nodded, but the weight pressed into my chest. For a second, I remembered Mom's voice as she used to guide me through homework at the kitchen table, her pencil tapping rhythms against the page. Her handwriting then was just as precise, just as careful, even now, in death. She was still teaching me, just with riddles instead of words. But the memory made it worse. My father had gambled away everything in '98. Our college funds, Mom's savings, even my first car. I'd sworn then numbers don't lie, people do. And now here was Mom, dead barely a week, still speaking to me in riddles. That evening, as the October rain beat against the window panes, a knock rattled the door. Uncle Ray Mercer stood there, damp suit, realtor Sip's smile. "Ethan," he said, pulling me into a half-hug that smelled of bourbon, "we need to talk about probate." I invited him in, against my better judgment. He spotted the diary on the counter like a hawk. "Mom kept notes?" His tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp, greedy. I covered it with my palm, private, not for probate. He chuckled, but the sound was hollow. "Come on. Executors need transparency. It's Sep's family business. Let me take that off your hands. Ease your burden." "No," I said flatly. "Chain of custody matters. You know that." Ray Sips's smile faltered. "Don Sips's make this harder, Ethan." I walked him out. As his taillights disappeared down Queen Anne Avenue, I felt the diary burn under my hand. That night, unable to sleep, I checked the ring cam feed. At 2:14 a.m., the motion alert blinked, a figure rifling through my office. Ray's broad shoulders. The footage was grainy, but unmistakable. He'd come back. In the morning, I found the hospice bill, $2,800, dated October 3rd, crumpled on the kitchen counter, a place my mother would never have left it. Beside it, the bank statements I'd been reviewing were missing, chain of custody compromised already. I logged the incident, printed screenshots, and slipped the hospice bill into a manila folder. I underlined the date. Evidence had to breathe in order, not chaos. Later that afternoon, Clara Mercer arrived, Ray's wife, 45, draped in black silk and diamonds that sparkled like she'd mistaken a memorial for a gala. She leaned close, perfume cloying. "Ethan," she cooed, brushing non-existent lint from my sleeve. "Don't make this harder on yourself. Trust Ray. Sign it all over. Families should unite, not fight." Her smile was porcelain, her eyes calculating. "Your mother would want peace," she pressed. "Ray can handle the accounts. You should grieve, not stress." She tilted her head with feigned sympathy. "It must be so hard for you losing her. I can't imagine the weight you're carrying. It must be so hard for you losing her." The words were sugar, but I could hear the steel beneath. Behind her, the faucet dripped steadily, each drop punctuating betrayal like a metronome of deceit. I thought of Maya upstairs, probably sketching the diary's coded words. My mother's voice, silenced by cancer, was still trying to shield us. And here stood Clara, rehearsing lines about unity and peace. But her diamonds told the truth. She was here for the money. I said nothing. Silence was my weapon in that moment. She left me with a final pat on the arm, like I was a child. The diamonds caught the October light as she walked out, and I felt a surge of clarity. If I bent now, everything Mom's house. Maya's tuition, the very legacy Mom had coded into that diary, would dissolve into Ray's debts and Clara's boutiques. So I did what I've done for decades. I logged it, evidence, witness, date, chain of custody. And then I made the call. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through contacts, and tapped the only name that made sense. Priya Narayanan, CPA. She owed me a favor from a case last year, and if anyone could trace missing funds and decode financial riddles, it was Priya. But first, there was procedure. Probate meeting set for October 12th, 5 days away. Ray wanted the diary, Clara wanted control, and I wanted the truth. I closed the diary and locked it in the oak desk drawer, sliding the blue tag key onto my keychain. Then I turned off the faucet, ending the drip that had mocked me all day. And as silence filled the kitchen once more, I realized this wasn't grief anymore. It was war. Seattle rain has a way of pressing down on you, not just from above, but from every direction. By October 7th, it had been 3 straight days of drizzle, and the Queen Anne house felt less like home and more like a mausoleum. Every corner still carried my mother's presence, her wool scarf hanging by the door, the faint smell of lavender in the upstairs bathroom. I sat at the oak desk with the diary spread open, flipping through entries I hadn't dared to read at the memorial. They weren't flowery, no poetry, no final declarations of love, just ledger-like precision, dates, amounts, transactions. Jan 7, timber sale, 2.4 M deposited. August 14th, bonds matured, $3.2 million. December 22nd, cashier's check, 699842, foundation seed. The number kept repeating, $699,842. I whispered it aloud, like saying it would make sense. But all it did was echo against the silence of the house. I rubbed my temples, and a memory of Dad intruded. The sound of dice rattling in his palm, the way his face would light up under casino lights. 1998. The year our savings evaporated. The year Mom cried over a kitchen table stacked with IOUs. I'd promised myself then never again. But grief has a way of dragging up every old wound, and now, staring at Mom's neat handwriting, I felt the same panic. The hospice bill was still on the counter, $2,800 dated October 3rd. I called their office to confirm. The nurse, tired but kind, explained that Mom had insisted on paying cash to spare you the bother, she'd said. She had been preparing even then, tidying up her life as if she knew we'd be sifting through receipts like breadcrumbs. I hung up the phone and felt the weight collapse on me. My chest tightened, and the tears came fast, hot and ugly. I buried my face in my hands, shoulders shaking, ashamed of the sound I was making. 48 years old, a man who traced fraud for a living, breaking down like a child. Then I felt a hand on my back. Maya, my daughter, my anchor. She didn't speak right away. She just stood beside me, her palm steady. When I finally looked up, her eyes were wet too. "Grandma left this for you," she said softly, tapping the diary. "For us." Her words hit like a lifeline. She wasn't scared of the weight. She wanted to carry it with me. The phone rang. Clara's name glowed across the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Ethan," she began, her voice honeyed but sharp underneath. "I've been thinking about you, about how much stress you under. If you cared about your mother Sep's peace, you let Ray handle the estate. That Sep's what she would have wanted." "No," I said flat, but she didn't stop. "Don't be stubborn. Probate is complicated. Ray's already spoken with Sabrina, and she's ready to fast-track filings. Do you really want to drag this through courts, papers, lawyers? It'll tear the family apart. Think about Maya. Think about her tuition. You don't want her dragged into this, do you?" Her manipulation cut deep. She knew exactly where to strike: my guilt, my fear of repeating Dad's failures. But when I looked over at Maya, she wasn't shrinking from this. She was standing straighter, jaw set, eyes blazing, and that clarity pierced through Clara's poison. "I'll think about it," I muttered, and hung up. Maya rolled her eyes. She sips scared. They all are. Why else would she be calling you at dinner time with her fake concern? She was right. And I realized this wasn't just about grief anymore. It was about power. They wanted the diary, the numbers, the legacy. And if I let them take it, I'd be repeating my father's mistake, surrendering family security to someone else's greed. So I dried my face, opened my laptop, and drafted an email. Subject: Urgent Trace Request. I attached scans of the hospice bill, the repeating numbers from the diary, and my notes. Priya, I typed. Need audit level trace on funds and check. Meet October 12th, after probate. Seconds later, her reply buzzed back. Bring everything, no leaks. We settle map it. Priya. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and for the first time in days felt a flicker of resolve. The grief was still there, raw and heavy, but beneath it something colder was forming. Determination. The rain kept drumming against the glass, and the faucet began its drip again. I didn't bother to shut it off this time. The sound wasn't mocking anymore, it was keeping time. A reminder that every second brought us closer to October 12th, the day I'd stop being just a grieving son and start being an investigator. October 12th arrived heavy with gray skies and wet pavement, the kind of Seattle morning where even the pigeons seemed too tired to move. I carried Mom's diary, sealed in a manila folder, into the probate office. Every step felt like a test. Was I carrying grief or carrying evidence? Priya met me afterward at her Belltown office, a narrow suite stacked with bankers' boxes and glowing monitors. She greeted me with a firm hug. You look like hell, she said, but there was kindness in her tone. Grief and greed make a good cocktail, I muttered, handing her the diary. She spread out her legal pad, jotting as I talked. Timber sale $2.4 million, January 7th. Bonds $3.2 million, August 14th. Offshore CD $4.6 million, set to mature November 5th. And that repeating figure, $699,842, written in Mom's hand like a drumbeat. I pulled a brass key from my pocket, dangling it by its blue tag. Found this in Mom Sep's oak desk, labeled set 212. Septa doesn't set fit anything in the house. Priya turned it over, scribbled safe deposit in her notes. Then I laid down another piece, a UPS notary receipt, October 2nd, 2:41 p.m., signed in blue ink. She frowned. Your mom notarized something 2 days before she passed. That SIP's no accident. I nodded. And Sabrina, our trustee, has already emailed demanding originals. She sips fishing. Priya typed quickly. Her keyboard clicks like gunfire. Then we don't give her originals. We CC Officer Hart and cite chain of custody. If Sabrina wants documents, she can subpoena. Her pragmatism steadied me. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't drowning. That night, Maya and I sat at the dining table, diary open between us. She traced one of Mom's doodles in the margin, a sketch of the Queen Anne skyline with a bold X over the hill. Grandma drew this for a reason, Maya said, tapping the page. 12 steps, could that be Carey Park? The stairs? Her eyes shone with the kind of clarity I'd nearly lost. My daughter was becoming the decoder, the anchor who refused to let grief blind me. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Clara again. Dinner tomorrow, she insisted. Bring Maya, we still talk about family, not paperwork. At that dinner, Clara played her part flawlessly. Candlelight wine poured before I sat down, her tone gentle but rehearsed. It sets about trust, Ethan, she said, eyes glittering over the rim of her glass. You such are clinging to scraps. This house, these papers, they one such bring her back. Ray is ready to shoulder the burden. Let him. Free yourself. Her words coiled like a script she'd memorized. But her eyes betrayed her, restless, darting toward the diary I'd left zipped in my bag. Maya leaned close, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. She sounds like she's selling a timeshare. I stifled a laugh, and Clara Sep's smile tightened. When we left, the drizzle had thickened into rain. I looked at my daughter, walking with her sketchbook tucked under her arm, and I knew Clara and Ray weren't just greedy. They were coordinated. This wasn't clumsy opportunism, it was rehearsed theft. And if Mom's code was right, the treasure wasn't just symbolic. It was real. Millions hidden in plain sight, protected by puzzles only someone like me could piece together. The decision was made. We'd follow the trail, every clue, every receipt, every number. On October 13th, I called Harbor West Bank and asked about safe deposit access. Box 212, I said. The clerk's pause told me more than words. Executor requests require trustee approval, he recited, which meant Sabrina's hand was already on the lock. Understood, I replied, masking my frustration. Then I called Officer Lena Hart at SPD Financial Crimes, looping her into the thread. Chain of custody must hold, I told her. She agreed every step needed to be documented. That night, Maya sat across from me at the desk, flipping through the diary again. She stopped at the code and whispered it aloud. Ash, blue key, 12th step, Queen Anne, 699842. Ring twice. It sounded like a riddle from a childhood game. Except the stakes weren't candy bars or secret handshakes. They were my mother's legacy, my retirement, my daughter's future. I reached over, closed the diary gently, and met Maya Sep's eyes. We follow it, every piece. She smiled through her worry. Grandma would love that. For the first time in weeks, I slept without the faucet dripping, without the walls closing in. The grief was still there, yes, but it had transformed into fuel. By October 18th, we'd marked the date on the calendar, the day we'd opened box 212 at Harbor West. Mom's voice had guided me once again, through grief, through Clara's sugar-coated venom, through Ray's midnight thefts. Now it was guiding me toward the truth. October 18th. I woke to the kind of sharp autumn cold that slips into your bones. Seattle's skyline looked washed in steel, the Space Needle stabbing at a gray sky. My calendar reminder buzzed. Harbor West Bank, box 212, 11 a.m. Maya rode beside me on the drive, her DSLR hanging from her neck like armor. She'd insisted on documenting everything. Grandma wanted a record, she said, and she was right. Chain of custody wasn't just my discipline anymore, it was hers too. The Harbor West lobby was glass and brass, gleaming but hollow. A clerk escorted us downstairs through two sets of locked gates. Box 212 slid free with a heavy scrape. Inside, no cash. My stomach dropped, but then I saw it, a laminated card with the same code my mother had written. Ash, blue key, 12th step, Queen Anne, 699842, ring twice. Below it, clipped bond coupons, serial numbers intact. And at the bottom, a cashier's check stub, $699,842, dated December 22nd, payable to Cole Family Foundation, blank endorsement line. My mother had planned something the trustee had conveniently left off the trust schedule. I slipped the items into a folder, logged the time. 11:17 a.m. evidence secured. Back upstairs, Priya texted, cross-checked Sabrina's trust filings. No mention of Cole Family Foundation. This is a live omission. Mail RCW 11.106 request today. So I did. Certified mail at 4:11 p.m. The receipt sliding into my file like a weapon. Sabrina wanted originals. She'd get a statute instead. On the way home, Maya asked, "What about the Cetus part?" I thought for a moment, then remembered the oak box in Mom's room. She'd kept a small tin labeled Ashes St. Bridget's. I'd assumed it was incense. That evening, we drove to St. Bridget's. Said, the church smelled of candle wax and cedar. Father O'Malley greeted me with a tired smile. "She left this for you," he said, handing me the tin. Beneath the ashes was a sticker, two tiny silver bells with the words "ring twice" stamped underneath. I held it like it was fire. My mother had buried layers of code, each step linking to the next. Maya snapped a photo, time-stamped it, and logged it in the binder she'd started keeping. Her handwriting was jagged but determined. On the drive home, my phone buzzed again, this time not from Priya, but from Clara. Her Instagram post filled the screen, a boutique fitting room mirror selfie. She wore a diamond necklace thick enough to blind a man. The caption read, "Family fortune incoming hash blessed." I nearly slammed the brakes. She wasn't hiding it anymore. While I was digging through ashes and laminated codes, Clara was broadcasting to the world that Ray's scheme was already paying off. I pulled over, gripping the steering wheel. "They think they've already won," I said aloud. Maya leaned over my shoulder. "Then they won set see it coming when they lose." Her voice carried more certainty than I felt, but it steadied me. At home I laid everything out on the dining table. The laminated code card, the bond coupons, the cashier's check stub, the ash tin with its bell sticker, and the hospice bill. Each piece was part of a trail. Each piece designed by my mother to outlive her. I thought of her again at that kitchen table years ago, tapping her pencil while Dad begged her to forgive his gambling losses. She hadn't forgiven him. She'd built walls of paper, receipts, and notes, trusting that someday I would need to use them. Now I was. That night I logged every detail: Harbor West entry, box 212, contents, certified mailing, ash tin discovery, evidence chain intact. Then, at 9:42 p.m., my phone chimed, a party invitation. Halloween night, Ray and Clara Mercer. Costumes encouraged. Drinks on us. Let's celebrate family. I stared at the screen, the irony not lost on me. A celebration of family? No. This was a stage, and Halloween, with masks and laughter, would be the perfect place to reveal what they thought was hidden. I tapped the invite, saved it to my calendar. Maya, reading over my shoulder, grinned. A sting at a costume party. Grandma would love that. I smiled for the first time in days, because she was right. By October 21st, the rhythm of my days had shifted. Grief was still there, yes, but it was no longer the center. Now everything revolved around evidence. Each receipt, each note, each clue my mother had planted. That morning I crouched by the heating vents in the Queen Anne house, flashlight in hand. Something had been rattling there for days. When I pried the cover loose, a manila envelope slid out. Inside, a letter on Sabrina Vega's firm stationery, dated September 29th. It was a draft agreement, her success fee proposal. 2% skim from the trust's liquidation, to be paid directly to her client account. Scrawled across the top in red ink, rejected. My mother's handwriting. I photographed it, logged the time, 8:43 a.m., and slipped it into Maya's binder. Sabrina hadn't just omitted assets. She'd tried to cut herself in, and Mom had refused. Maya shook her head. "Grandma really saw through everyone, didn't she?" "She did," I said, "and she left us the trail to prove it." That afternoon we drove to Cary Park. The October sky had finally broken into sunlight, the air crisp with a bite of winter. Tourists lined the railing, snapping photos of the skyline. But Maya wasn't looking at the skyline. She was counting the steps. 1, 2, 11, 12. At the 12th she stopped, pointing toward the brass coin viewer bolted into the concrete. I leaned down, aligning my eyes with the viewer. The lens framed Queen Anne Bank across the street. Its brass door gleamed in the sun, and etched into the metal above the buzzer was a tiny bell. 2 bells. "Ring twice," Maya whispered. We tried the buzzer, half expecting a vault door to swing open like a movie. Instead, the intercom crackled. "Suite 1201, Cole Family Foundation." I froze. A foundation, registered but never funded. My mother had created the shell, but Sabrina had hidden it from the schedule. We logged the discovery, snapped photos, and walked back down the steps in silence. Each breadcrumb was leading us towards something bigger, something my mother had guarded even from the people closest to her. That evening Clara arrived at my door. This time she carried a Tupperware of cookies, her smile whiter than usual. "I thought you could use a little sweetness," she said, pressing the container into my hands. Her performance was almost admirable. "You don't have to do this," I told her, but she leaned in anyway. "Why risk court, Ethan? Why drag Maya through hearings and filings? Sign authority over to Ray. Let this foundation nonsense go. He sips ready to take care of everything. You can rest. You deserve rest." Her words dripped sugar, but her eyes betrayed irritation. She'd seen my refusal to bend, and it was cracking her mask. Maya stood behind me, arms crossed, glaring openly. Clara noticed, her smile flickering. "You don't want to set a bad example for her, do you?" she added, her tone suddenly sharp. That was the slip. The sweetness dropped, just for a second, and in that second I saw her for what she was, a woman terrified of losing her grip on money that wasn't hers. I closed the door without answering. Inside, I set the cookies on the counter, untouched. Maya laughed bitterly. "She actually thinks we stirred that easy." I shook my head. "No, but she thinks we stirred tired, and that sips how they win." We sat back at the table, binder open, timeline spread before us. The hospice bill, the cashier's check stub, the laminated card, the success fee letter, the bell sticker. Each piece clicked into place, forming not just a trail, but a case. Pregia called that night, her voice crackling through the speaker. I drafted the bar complaint against Sabrina, and the petition to compel accounting is ready. We hold the trigger until after Halloween, but the bullets are loaded. I exhaled, the weight shifting just enough to let me breathe. "Good," I said, "because this isn't set just about money anymore. It's set about showing them that numbers don't set lie, people do." And in the quiet that followed, I realized something. My mother hadn't just hidden money. She'd hidden integrity inside those codes. She'd trusted me to finish what she started. Halloween was 10 days away, and by then the mask Clara wore, the lies Sabrina had built, the debt Ray drowned in, they'd all be torn away. October 31st. Seattle draped itself in fog, the kind that curls low across the streets like smoke from a cauldron. Halloween night, the perfect disguise for greed and betrayal. Maya tugged at her costume in the mirror. She'd chosen a raven mask, black feathers framing her eyes, her DSLR slung over her shoulder like a second set of wings. "Grandma would like this," she said with a smile. I'd gone simpler. Carpenter's overalls, tool belt slung low. I wanted to blend in, not stand out. In a way it felt right. My job was to build cases, not destroy them. When we pulled up to Ray and Clara's Queen Anne mansion, the driveway was jammed with luxury cars. Clara had strung orange lights across the eaves, and carved pumpkins lined the walkway, grinning like devils. Inside, the music pounded, the air thick with perfume and liquor. Sabrina Vega was already holding court in the living room, dressed as a 1920s flapper, champagne glass in hand. She laughed too loudly, her pearls swinging, as she gestured. Evan, my younger cousin, had gone all in on his costume, a crypto king crown askew, gold chain plastic but flashy. And Clara, of course, was draped in diamonds again, her dress shimmering silver. She raised her glass high. "To family wealth," she cried, "and to Ray for finally bringing us all together." The room erupted in cheers. Maya's camera clicked softly, catching every expression. I slipped to the balcony, where the fog rolled in from Puget Sound. That's where I caught them, Ray and Sabrina, voices low, words cutting through the night like knives. Ray Sip's voice cracked with desperation. The margin call hit. "If the account's done, sit clear Monday." Sip's finished. Sabrina hushed him. "Stop panicking. The paperwork Sip's ready. Monday we still move it. Just keep Ethan off balance." I pulled my phone from my pocket, hit record. Their whispers poured into the mic, time-stamped, evidence added to the chain. Back inside, Clara was laughing too loudly, swirling her drink. "Ray's finally going to save this family." She boomed, her words rehearsed, her eyes darting to me. I took my moment. I stepped into the center of the room, set my phone on the counter, and tapped play. The recording spilled into the air. Ray's voice, desperate. Sabrina's, conniving. The room fell silent except for the sound of their betrayal. Then I cast the second blow. My ring cam clip. On the TV screen, Ray appeared, caught rifling through my office on October 6th, his broad shoulders filling the frame. Gasps, murmurs. Clara's diamonds seemed to dull in the sudden shame. And for the final strike of the night, I hit play on a voicemail. Sabrina Sitt's voice, smooth but damning. "Yes, authorize the cash pull. I still bury it in the schedule. Ray 1 Sit question it." The room exploded. Voices rose, some in shock, others in anger. Clara slammed her glass down, the stem snapping. "This is a witch hunt," she shouted, but her voice cracked. Ray's face was crimson. He lunged toward me, but Evan pulled him back, muttering something about exposure. Even Evan, drowning in his own crypto debts, knew this was bad. Maya's camera clicked again, freezing the moment. Ray red-faced, Clara furious, Sabrina pale with fury. I raised my voice just enough to cut through the chaos. "This isn't sept about family, it's sept's about numbers, and numbers don't lie." The silence that followed was thicker than the fog outside. Sabrina finally hissed, "You still regret this, Ethan. Court won't sit side with you." But her words sounded weak now, stripped of their power. The recordings, the footage, the receipts, they weren't just accusations, they were facts. I gathered my phone, tucked it back into my pocket, and turned to leave. Maya followed, her mask feathers brushing my arm. Behind us, the party collapsed into whispers and accusations. On the drive home, she scrolled through her shots. "We got them, Dad," she said quietly. I gripped the wheel tighter, the fog swallowing our headlights. "We rattled them, but the real fight sits next. Court." She nodded, leaning back against the seat. "Grandma would be proud." I didn't answer, because I knew the truth. This wasn't victory yet. It was only the rising tension before the final act. November 6th arrived with a thin slice of winter on the air. I stood on the granite steps of King County Superior Court and watched my breath turn white. Maya slipped her hand into mine. The DSLR strap looped across her chest like a diagonal promise. Inside my briefcase, Mom's diary, the laminated card, the Harbor West safe deposit log, the $2,800 hospice bill, the cashier's check stub for $699,842, the notary receipt from October 2nd, screenshots of Clara's family fortune incoming post, the ring cam clip, and the audio of Ray and Sabrina whispering on Halloween. Evidence wasn't just paper anymore. It was a spine. Priya met us inside security. "Judge Avery Barnett," she murmured as we rode the elevator up. "Plain English, Judge. No theatrics, just facts." She squeezed my shoulder. "Let the numbers talk." Courtroom 7B was all varnished wood and diffused gray light. Officer Lena Hart took a seat behind us. Quiet, present, a reminder to keep every step lawful. On the opposite table, Sabrina sat rigid in a charcoal suit, pearls tucked away tonight, flanked by a younger associate riffling a Redwell. Ray slumped beside her, jaw tight, eyes bloodshot. Clara perched behind them in a cream coat, diamonds dim under fluorescent lights. Evan drifted in late, hoodie under blazer, tapping his phone until the bailiff shot him a look that froze him mid-scroll. "All rise," the bailiff said, and Judge Barnett entered with a file under her arm and a coffee mug that read, "Explain it to me like I sup your neighbor." We rose. We sat. Cole versus Vega et al. Petition for accounting. Removal of trustee, appointment of receiver, and related relief, the clerk read. Priya stood. "Good morning, Your Honor. Petitioner Ethan Cole is seeking three things. First, a court-ordered accounting of the Cole Trust. Second, the removal of Miss Vega as trustee for breach of fiduciary duty. Third, appointment of a receiver to safeguard the assets. We also seek a temporary freeze of the relevant accounts." The judge nodded. "Miss Vega?" Sabrina rose smoothly. "Good morning, Your Honor. This is a grieving son SIP's misunderstanding. The alleged two hidden SIP's funds do not exist as cash. The $699,842 was a check that never cleared. There is nothing to freeze." Her voice was satin over sandpaper, practiced even. I felt Maya's fingers tighten around the DSLR strap. "Mr. Cole," Judge Barnett said, turning to me, "in plain English, what do you think happened to your mother SIP's money?" I stood. My mouth was dry. My mother left a coded trail to assets she intended for care, for the house, and for charity. Those assets include a timber sale for $2.4 million on January 7th, bonds maturing for $3.2 million on August 14th, and a $4.6 million offshore CD set to mature November 5th. There's a cashier's check stub for $699,842, dated December 22nd, payable to the Cole Family Foundation, an entity my mother registered but Miss Vega omitted from the trust schedules. Since my mother's death, the trustee and the executor have coordinated to conceal and divert funds. I steadied myself. Numbers don't lie. People do. A muscle in Sabrina Sepp's cheek twitched. Show me, the judge said. Start with the foundation. Priya placed 3 exhibits on the evidence cart like she was laying down cards. The laminated code card with ring twice. The photo of the Queen Anne Bank buzzer etched with twin bells and Suite 1201, and the filed certificate of the Cole Family Foundation registered but never funded. Next, the check. Judge Barnett said. I slid the cashier Sepp's check stub forward. $699,842, December 22nd. Pay Cole Family Foundation, endorsement line blank. The judge leaned in, reading the serial numbers, the bank logo. You are telling me this check was cut, and then what? Stopped, Priya said, and replaced. Sabrina Sett's head snapped up. That is speculation. Affidavit of Miguel Alvarez, Senior Operations at Queen Anne Bank, Priya said, holding up a stapled packet. On October 24th, 3 weeks after Miss Cole's memorial, Miss Vega requested a stop payment on the December 22nd check and directed that a new cashier's check in the identical amount be issued to SV Client Trust. A whisper ran through the gallery. Clara stiffened. Ray shifted in his seat like the floor had moved beneath him. Sabrina found her voice. There was confusion about the pay. The foundation paperwork was incomplete. Then why omit the foundation from your trust schedules? Priya asked, voice cool. And why stop payment 10 months after issuance, within days of gaining control as trustee? Judge Barnett held up a palm. One at a time, Miss Vega. Did you stop the check and reissue it to your client trust account? Sabrina hesitated. Yes, temporarily, for safekeeping. The judge turned to me. Anything else? I nodded. Your Honor, there's also a pattern of concealment involving the executor. I tapped my phone and the ring cam video played without sound. Ray on October 6th at 2:14 a.m., rifling my office. Then, with the court's permission, the audio from Halloween, Ray panicking about a margin call, Sabrina promising to move it Monday. Finally, Sabrina's own voicemail authorized the cash pull. I'll bury it in the schedule. Ray won't question it. The judge listened, expression unreadable. The words bury it seemed to hang in the courtroom like a sour smell. Miss Vega, the judge asked. Sabrina swallowed. Out of context. Clara shot to her feet, voice fraying. This is a witch hunt. He hated his father, and now he Sepp's punishing us for it. Masepam, the judge said, without looking at her. Sit. Clara sat, the diamonds at her throat suddenly looking like pebbles. Priya set down one last exhibit, a letter on Sabrina's firm letterhead, September 29th, success fee of 2% of trust liquidation to be paid to her client account. Across the top, in my mother's precise hand, rejected. Sabrina's associate leaned forward. Irrelevant, he blurted. The judge Sepp's eyes were flint. It goes to motive. Ray finally found words. I was just trying to keep things afloat. The market... This is not a margin call clinic, Mr. Mercer, Judge Barnett said. It Sepp's a probate courtroom. Silence fell like a gavel before the gavel. The judge took a breath, flipped back through her notes, and then looked at me the way a neighbor might, over a fence. Mr. Cole, what do you want to happen today? Safety, I said. Freeze the accounts. Get an independent receiver in place by noon. Compel a full accounting within 10 days. Remove Miss Vega as trustee. Preserve the house and the foundation funds my mother intended. Judge Barnett nodded slowly. Here's sis what we sister going to do. She spoke in clean lines, as if skimming fat from a broth. First, the court orders an immediate freeze on all trust-related accounts and any account holding funds derived from the timber sale, bond maturities, the December 22nd cashier's check, and the November 5th CD. Second, An independent receiver will be appointed today by noon to take custody of the books, keys, and digital access. Third, Miss Vega is suspended as trustee pending hearing on removal. Fourth, the executor, Mr. Mercer, is ordered to surrender safe deposit keys and any estate documents in his possession within 24 hours. Fifth, a verified accounting for the last 12 months is due in 10 days. Sixth, no disbursements to any party without court approval. Her pen clicked shut. I say I'm also issuing preservation orders for electronic communications, texts, emails, DMs. If I learn that anything has been deleted after this moment, you will make a friend of the prosecutor. Clara exhaled like someone had punched her. Evan finally looked up from his phone, pale. Sabrina rose, voice thin. Your Honor, a freeze will cause. A pause, the judge said. A freeze is a pause. This court is choosing the pause button over the shredder. Priya touched my elbow. Maya's breath hitched, and I realized I'd been holding mine. Receiver by noon, the judge repeated, gathering her file. We still reconvene on removal in 1 week. Until then, you all stay off the internet, stay out of each other's SIPs homes, and stay on your lawyer's SIPs advice. Court is adjourned. The gavel struck, small and final. The bailiff called. All rise, and it was over, at least for the morning. In the corridor the air felt lighter, like we opened a window in a sealed room. Officer Hart gave me a curt nod, approval without words. Priya allowed herself a small smile. That was the hard part, she said, then corrected herself. One of the hard parts. Ray Sips's cologne arrived before he did. He stepped in close, the tendons in his neck pulled taut. You think you won, he hissed. The fog of his breath sour. You just embarrassed your family in public. I didn't do that, I said. Your actions did. Sabrina brushed past. Phone already at her ear. Voice flattened into crisis mode. Clara hovered 3 paces back. Eyes darting, calculating the new shape of failure. When she met my gaze, there was no sweetness left. Just the glare of someone watching a mirror crack. Maya lifted the camera and clicked once, quiet, decisive. Chain of custody, she said, almost to herself. We rode the elevator down with Priya and the receiver's paralegal, who handed over a short checklist, keys by noon, logins at 12:30, file room access at 1:15 p.m. It read like a recipe for breathing. Outside, Seattle's cold felt clean. I looked up at the slice of sky and let myself imagine, just for a second, my mother at our old kitchen table, tapping a pencil and nodding once. Not approval, exactly. Recognition. Numbers don't lie. People do. And today, the numbers had started to speak for her. By November 7th, the ripple effects had begun. Court freezes don't just sit quietly in files. They echo through bank servers, brokerage terminals, and whispered phone calls. You could hear the damage spreading like cracks through glass. Ray called me at 6:12 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was ragged, almost pleading. Ethan, you don't understand. They locked me out. Margin call hit last night. They coming for the house for everything. Help me. Help him? After he'd rifled my office at 2:14 a.m. After he'd let Clara sharpen her smile against Maya like a knife? No, the court had finally done what I couldn't cut him off. By mid-morning, Evan's meltdown arrived by text. Bro, they froze my wallet too? What if? He'd been running his crypto through family-linked accounts, sloppy and arrogant. Now his screen showed zeros, and for once there was nothing left to brag about. Clara reacted differently. She disappeared from Instagram altogether. The family fortune incoming posts vanished overnight. Her boutique selfies gone. Friends whispered she was humiliated. She'd built her whole identity on curated sparkle, and now the diamonds felt like lead weights. Sabrina's fall was sharper, quieter, and more brutal. At 11:08 a.m., Priya forwarded me an internal email leaked from her firm. Effective immediately, Miss Vega is scrubbed from the website and suspended pending review. Her name blinked off the attorney roster like it had never existed. One associate, perhaps emboldened, leaked a spreadsheet of her success fee negotiations. 27 columns of side deals. She hadn't just tried with my mother. She'd tried with everyone. The receiver moved fast. By noon, orders hit the system. Timber proceeds traced through a Shell LLC. Sabrina had parked offshore. Bonds accounted for. $3.2 million intact. The November 5th CD matured, releasing $4.62 million into the frozen account, and the $699,842 already in transit, moving from Sabrina's SV client trust toward the receiver's escrow. At 3:47 p.m., I sat at my oak desk and read the email aloud to Maya. Funds located, $6.1 million accessible. $699,842 confirmed, $4. 62 million CD matured. Aggregate corpus now $10.2 million. She covered her mouth with her hands, eyes wide. Dad, Grandma really did it. She left it all. I nodded, but my throat tightened. It wasn't triumph I felt. It was awe. My mother had beaten them. Even from the grave. Every code, every breadcrumb, every rejection letter, she'd outplanned them all. But victory doesn't come without backlash. That night, the sound of breaking glass shattered the calm. Maya screamed and I ran to the kitchen window. A rock lay among the shards, wrapped in paper. The note, scrawled in block letters, dropped the act. I felt the old panic rise. The same helplessness from 1998, when Dad's debts had left us stranded. But Maya steadied me. She bent down, lifted the note with tongs, slipped it into a plastic sleeve, and logged it. Chain of custody, she whispered, her voice shaking but firm. She was 20 years old, but in that moment she carried the weight of generations. I called Officer Hart. She arrived within 20 minutes, patrol lights washing the house in blue and red. She bagged the rock, took photos of the scene, and promised a patrol car would swing by nightly. They said you're desperate, she told me. Desperation makes people stupid. Let the process finish. You set her on the right side of this. I thanked her, closed the door, and found Maya still at the table, adding the rock and note to her binder. The faucet dripped once, twice, before I turned it off. For the first time since Mom's funeral, the silence didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. November 9th. The air outside the receiver's office on 4th Avenue was sharp enough to sting the lungs. I held the door open for Maya, who carried the thick binder she'd built, our living archive of grief, betrayal, and evidence. Inside, the conference room smelled of stale coffee and toner. The receiver, a gray-haired man named Daniel Price, sat at the head of the long oak table. His paralegal arranged neat stacks of exhibits, trust schedules, bank statements, the laminated code card, the $699,842 cashier's check reissue. The order of the day wasn't sentiment. It was reckoning. Ray slouched in a chair across from me, eyes hollowed, his realtor's polish gone. Clara sat beside him, lips tight, cream coat buttoned high, as though fabric could protect her from shame. Evan scrolled on his phone until the paralegal barked, "Phone's off." He flushed crimson and shoved it into his pocket. Sabrina Vega arrived last, late by 8 minutes, her suit unpressed, pearls absent. Her hands shook as she pulled out a chair. For the first time she looked less like counsel and more like a defendant. Price cleared his throat. "We traced the funds. Here are the findings." The paralegal handed out packets. Page 1, Cold Trust Receivership Findings. First, Price said, voice firm, Miss Vega breached fiduciary duty by omitting the Cole Family Foundation from the trust schedules and redirecting funds into her client account. Second, Mr. Mercer, as executor, violated Washington estate law by accessing estate property without disclosure and by withholding bank statements. Third, Mr. Evan Cole, unauthorized access of accounts and misappropriation of keys. Fourth, Mrs. Clara Mercer, complicit, benefiting from diverted withdrawals and exerting undue influence. Clara Sipp's diamonds rattled as she sucked in breath. "This is outrageous, Mrs. Mercer." Price cut in, "You will remain silent until I finish." Her face burned red, but she said nothing. Price continued, "Remedies are as follows. Miss Vega is removed permanently as trustee. This matter is referred to the bar for disciplinary review and potential disbarment. Mr. Mercer is under criminal investigation for breach of fiduciary duty and unlawful access. Evan Cole will face restitution demands and civil penalties for unauthorized account access. Mrs. Mercer is stripped of any authority or privileges relating to estate assets. Ray's shoulders sagged. Evan muttered, "This is bull," but one look from Price silenced him. "Next," Price said, tapping the packet. "The $699,842 cashier SIPTA's check has been reissued properly to the Cole Family Foundation as intended by the decedent. The November 5th CD matured, adding $4.62 million. Together with timber and bond proceeds, total corpus now stands at $10.2 million. My throat tightened. Maya's hand brushed mine under the table. "Finally," Price said, "softer now, Mr. Ethan Cole retains the Queen Anne residence. It is preserved from liquidation. The foundation bylaws will be amended to reflect a permanent charitable mission, with Mr. Cole as initial director and Miss Maya Cole as successor." For a moment the room was silent except for the scratch of the paralegal's pen. Then Clara slammed her palm on the table. "You broke family trust, Ethan. You think money replaces blood? You self-destroyed us." I looked at her evenly. "I didn't self-destroy us. Greed did." Her face twisted, and she shoved back her chair, storming out. Ray followed, head low. Evan trailed last, muttering curses under his breath. The door slammed. Only Sabrina lingered, hands trembling on the table. She looked at me, lips parted as if to speak. But the words never came. Finally she stood, collected her bag, and walked out without looking back. When the door shut, silence filled the room again. Price slid the signature pages toward me. "Sign here to formalize the bylaws, Mr. Cole." My hand shook as I picked up the pen. Not from fear, but from the weight of it all. Years of distrust, weeks of grief, the pounding drip of that faucet that had marked every betrayal. I signed. Then I passed the pen to Maya. She wrote her name with steady strokes, Maya Cole, Director, Cole Family Foundation. She exhaled sharply when the ink dried, as though sealing a chapter. I closed the binder and felt something shift inside me. Not triumph, not revenge, but something quieter, justice. Outside, the sky had cleared. For the first time in weeks, sunlight fell across the Queen Anne Hills, catching in the glass of skyscrapers like fire. On the sidewalk, Clara Sip's voice carried sharp hissing. She turned, pointing at me with shaking hands. "You Sifs'll regret this. You Sifs of broken blood ties. Family doesn't sift forget." I met her eyes. Steady, numbers don't forget either. And they sipped the only truth left. She spun away, Ray gripping her elbow, Evan trailing like a ghost. Their figures shrank into the city crowd until they were swallowed whole. Maya lifted her camera, snapped one last photo of them disappearing, and whispered, "Chain of custody." I smiled at her, tired but proud. Mom Sep's puzzle was solved. Her legacy was safe, and for the first time in decades I felt the wound Dad's gambling had carved begin to close. The morning after the reckoning, November 10, I rose before dawn and made coffee in the Queen Anne kitchen that had become both battlefield and archive. The faucet did its old trick, a single drip, 2 beats of silence, another drip. It used to sound like accusation. Today it was just water, keeping time with a quieter house. I set Mom's diary on the table and opened to the last page again, the page that had started all of this, ash, blue key, 12th step. Queen Anne, 699842, ring twice. I read it aloud, thinking of the order, the rhythm, the way my mother always tapped a pencil while she worked. It wasn't just a code. It was a map of her values. Ash, faith, and memory. The tin from St. Bridget's, and the little bell sticker tucked beneath, her way of saying grief is real, but it isn't the last line. Blue key, custody, and care. The box 212 tag I hung on my keychain, the night we decided this was war. 12th step, the stairs at Cary Park. The coin viewer framing the bank door like a sightline for courage. Queen Anne, home. Not as an asset, but as a promise. 699842. The seed, a number she wrote like a prayer, not to keep but to give. Ring twice, not to demand entry, but to signal integrity. Announce yourself, don't sneak. I underlined each word with my finger and closed the diary. The leather had softened from being handled every day. I wondered how many times she'd opened it, counting on me to understand when the time came. Maybe she trusted that my rules numbers don't lie. Chain of custody, don't sign what you haven't read, would meet her rules. Leave the world better than you found it, and don't let grief make you small. At 9:15 a.m., I drove to the hospice office with my checkbook. The lobby smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and chamomile tea. Nurse Alvarez, Marisol, I learned, met me with a tired smile that could have belonged to anyone's family. I wrote the amount on the pad without needing to check the folder. 2,800, I said, as my pen scratched the date November 10th. It was in cash before. I want it in my handwriting now. She blinked, surprised. We had you marked as settled. My mother wanted it quiet, I said, but quiet shouldn't erase gratitude. I tore the check, placed it in her hand, and like a good auditor took a photocopy for the file. When she tried to thank me, I shook my head. She left this part for me. Back home, Maya had transformed the dining room. She'd cleared the evidence stacks into color-coded bins and centered one frame on the wall above the desk. Cole Family Foundation, the certificate we'd signed with the receiver. The paper caught the late morning light, and for the first time the room didn't look like a war room. It looked like the start of a different kind of work. I thought we should hang it where the faucet can see it, she said, grinning. Witnesses matter, I told her, and she laughed. We spent the afternoon drafting bylaws amendments the receiver had approved in principle. I typed while Maya paced, dictating provisions the way she sketches confidently with clean lines. Scholarships for students from hospice families. Microgrants for caregivers trying to finish school at night. An annual stipend for a Queen Anne neighbor who keeps an aging parent at home. Little practical supports. No billboards. No galas. At 3:22 p.m. I opened a new document and typed Foundation Announcement, December 22nd. We chose the date not just because Mom's check stub carried it, but because it felt like something was returning to its rightful course. The first scholarship would be announced that day, $6,998.42 to begin, a wink to the number that pulled us through, enough to pay for a semester or a month of rent or a machine that makes breathing easier. We could scale up later. The point was to start with edges as precise as hers. I drafted the announcement like a ledger entry that could be read on a porch. On December 22nd, the Cole Family Foundation will award its first Hands That Hold scholarship for $6,998.42 to a caregiver or student in King County whose family has faced hospice within the past year. Applications open December 1st. Decisions announced December 22nd. No essays about tragedy required, only proof of effort and a plan. Maya added one line at the top. This award is in honor of Eleanor Cole, who believed help should be simple, quiet, and on time. We stared at it in silence. It felt right. By November 14th, Officer Hart texted to say the glass thrower's note had lifted a partial print. Nothing definitive yet, but the patrol logs would continue a while longer. I thanked her and offered to bring the chain of custody binder if they needed an updated index. You're the only civilian I've met who keeps an index for their grief, she replied. I smiled, then realized it was, in fact, the truest thing anyone had said to me in months. On November 18th, Priya called to say the removal hearing had been formalized into a stipulated order, no theatrics required. Sabrina didn't show. Her associate filed a bland notice about family obligations. The bar email followed 2 days later, complaint docketed. I filed it in a thin red tab labeled Consequences, and felt no thrill, just a quiet ease. Justice is not loud, it is consistent. I walked the neighborhood more after that. Queen Anne in late November is all cold light and leaf-littered sidewalks, neighbors waving with their hands stuffed into jackets. Every so often someone would mention seeing my mother on her stoop last spring, book in her lap, nodding at passers-by like an old lighthouse keeps time. She was steady, one said. You always knew where you were with her. I kept those words like receipts. On December 1st, we posted the application form and turned off comments. People don't need a chorus to ask for help. They need a clear doorbell and someone who answers when it rings. The night before the announcement, December 21st, Maya and I sat at the kitchen table with hot cocoa, and the binder opened to the first page. We didn't read it, we just let the weight rest there, like a friend who no longer needs to be explained. The faucet didn't drip. The house held still. Dad, Maya said, tracing the diary-sep's spine. Do you ever think she worried we wouldn't find it? She didn't set worry, I said. She prepared. And you? I worried. Then I followed the numbers. And your voice? She bumped my shoulder, smiled, and went to hang a tiny brass bell ornament on the cabinet knob. 2 little bells. She tapped them, ring, ring. The sound was bright and quick. December 22nd, 10 a.m. We posted the announcement and mailed a copy on paper with a stamp to St. Bridget sent. I set Mom's diary beneath the frame for one last read. I didn't need a code anymore. I just wanted to see her handwriting. The lines were even, the ink didn't blot. She had written for someone she trusted to finish the math. I signed the announcement with my full name, Ethan Cole, director, and beneath it, Maya signed hers. She added a postscript in her neat skater girl scrawl, for Grandma. We stood a moment longer and let the house listen. If revenge is just returning what's owed, then ours was done. Not in flames, but in forms, dates, and a bell you ring twice. I had wanted punishment. What I needed was a boundary. Justice held the shape, and the shape held us. People say grief is a thief. Sometimes it is, but mine turned out to be a locksmith. You didn't lose me, you gave me away.